I have so many bad jokes to tell too. I had
Well, what's
nothing
new
but
about that? That's like any day of the week.
I got nothing but bad jokes. I want to say,
I know,
because
some of them are so bad they're good.
what world are we so lucky that we get to talk with Broadway stars one day? We get to talk to NASCAR team owners and race car drivers the next day. It's a cool world, right? Like we're doing good.
It's amazing. Yeah. If you'd have told me I'd be able to talk to people smarter than me for a living someday, I wouldn't have believed you.
Wait, you're making a living? Backpack. We have. I'm going to be happy every time.
Someday I'm going to do that to you. I'm going to push it when you're not ready. And
you should push it mid-sentence.
While you're in the middle of your bad joke, I'll be like, whoa, backpack.
So people of Earth, hello, welcome. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Today is Friday, the 31st of July. I only know this because I have neighbors in my hallways. And I said, hey, neighbor, I'm not sure what day it is. And they said, it's Friday. And I said, okay, got it. And I said, is it still July? And they said, just today. And I said, okay, good to know. That's my world. And listen, I'm excited. Tad Geschickter is here. He is a NASCAR owner. How cool is it to talk to someone who, got through this through brand development, marketing, and all that? Carrie, you know the backstory pretty well. What do we know about Tad?
So he started out with P&G doing, consumer product advertising, that kind of stuff. And when they decided to sponsor a race car, that's how he first became aware kind of the sport and got into it. And it's a really interesting story, actually, how he decided he wanted his own team. But they started out in, I would call it a barn, but I think his wife was like, it's more like a chicken coop.
Chicken coop kind of thing. Huh?
So he can tell you the story himself. It's really interesting. But it was like a startup and new to racing, and it's like just an incredible story. So we should definitely get him to tell it. But all his brands, the team's brands right now, all the sponsor brands, they're all doing gangbusters at the moment because they're brands like Scott toilet paper and
Scott
Clorox
toilet paper and Clorox, and man, we ride with the winner today.
Bring him in. Let's talk about it. And we're waiting for the I think Ryan Preece, the one of his drivers, is going to just like slide in at some point.
Yeah, I like that the race car driver is the one who's late, but we got to kind of nerd out on Camaro stuff with him, being both Camaro fans and all that. You in general, just a muscle car fan. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. This episode is not sponsored by Johnsonville Brats, but maybe by the time I'm done, Tad's going to teach me how to get Johnsonville Brats to give me a bag of money because, who knows? So I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, I could ask him, how am I going to get those Brat guys to give me some loot?
He actually has a cool tool called the Brand Activation Maximizer that he created that can help you find some sponsors. So let's do it.
Brand Activation Maximizer. Bam. It sounds like an acronym. I wish I had a graphic for that.
I'll bet you do. There's a small one. If you prefer it bigger.
Go big. Jennifer Lynn asks Tad hard questions. Well, here we go.
All right. If a train leaves the station going 65 miles per hour, and I'm just kidding. It's the hardest question I could think of.
That's my for Chapel. Thanks a lot, Jen.
Hey, Jennifer. Tad, what's the fastest land animal?
Ryan Preece.
Not Ryan Preece. It is a cheetah.
Cheetah. Oh.
It is a cheetah.
No, they don't fly. I don't know. Cheetah.
Yeah, but behind the wheel of a Camaro, Ryan Preece.
That's right. Good answer.
That could be true. So, way back in the day, you were out there playing all the various sports balls, and you never knew that you would land up running a team of race car drivers. That's got to be, in the realm of things people think about when they're a kid. You think in your head, I'm going to be another Jim Rice, or I'm going to be, somebody that you feel like is a lot more directly accessible. Then you go and you get a real grown-up job. And then somewhere in the middle of the grown-up job, you think, I think I could buy a race car team. How does that happen again?
I was sitting in church and the sermon was about mission. And the preacher said something I'll never forget. He said, where your passions and your God-given talents intersect is your mission field. And I got to thinking about how much I absolutely adored team sports all the way through college and missed it. And thought about how much I enjoyed and had a talent for connecting the dots between features and benefits for brands and putting together programs. And he was in the middle of NASCAR marketing at that time for Tide, and said, you know what, we can do this. We start a race team. Could be my mission field. And it's of course a multi-millionaire sport. We had no money. I was a newlywed, so I came home and told my wife, this is what I want to do. And of course, being newlywed, she said, honey, you're wonderful. You can do anything. Now we've been married 28 years. She'd probably say, are you crazy? But that's really kind of what got my mind percolating on this whole concept.
She's tagging her husband in. Bess is tagging her husband in to come check this out.
Oh, that's what we're doing here. Okay. I was like, is this supposed to cue something? Are we supposed to?
No, I love that. So I love that you timed your request right at the beginning so that you could get her into that. Tell me about where you started out, kind of like paint me a picture of what it was like when you wanted to start a racing team. Because a lot of people would think it's all glamour and glitz right from the beginning. But
I was coaching 13-year-old baseball at the time, and so happened my assistant coach's son played on the team, and he worked for Hendrick Motorsports, one of the bigger teams, worked on cars his whole life. So that became my first. Hey, there's my driver. He's sideways.
Sideways.
Hold on. Is there a way for you to? Oh, here we go. I gotta take.
You're in, baby.
There we go.
Hey.
Does that work better?
Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
Good. You're in a little bit of hot water with your boss, but apart from that,
otherwise you're good.
Yeah. So I thought I put the alert on my calendar, and I didn't. So it's a good thing Tad has a really good good employee like Kelly to shoot me a text. So yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you're not doing this while driving, because I hear you drive fast. So that'd be dangerous. So thanks for parking first. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Right. We cut off your boss though, so we probably ought to let this story finish up. So
Tad was telling us how he started out. So go ahead. You were getting the team off the ground with the very gracious permission of your wife.
Yep. So we met the race car side of the equation that way through Little League Baseball.
Right.
And behind his house, he had where he built his kind of dirt track short cars, late mile cars. It was a chicken coop. He had a toolbox. We had no cars, and I started dialing for dollars. So I'm Tad. I've worked for P&G. We can help your brand build themselves through NASCAR. And eventually, some brands came to visit us. You're asking for $1 million in sponsorship. And they walked in the chicken coop with no cars and said, no, we're not doing that. So it's funny how networking works. I met a guy named Jim Cannon, one of the owners of Cannon Mills, who loved racing. And he called me out of the blue one day and said, you still trying to start your race team? I said, yeah. He said, there's a guy down near the airport who's trying to start an IndyCar team. He has a fully equipped shop, and he's really struggling to make ends meet. Why don't you go talk to him? Maybe there's a deal to be made. So the guy said, look, I'm out of money. I'm going to lose the building. I'm going to lose all my equipment with it. I'll let you lease the building with full use of the equipment. So I had enough money in my savings account maybe to lease the building for 3 months, but I thought at least I have equipment now.
That's right.
Show that there's a real entity here. So I leased the building for 3 months and brought all those people that looked at the chicken coop back down to see how our operation had progressed. And lo and behold, we got our first sponsor in that period. So
wow.
That's kind of where we started. He ended up moving back to Australia, selling us all his equipment for the balance on the note. So we bought most of our equipment for 10 cents on the dollar, and it's pretty miraculous. That's how the Lord works to make it so if you have no money, you can end up having the equipment you need to build race cars.
The Lord and a good phone book, though, because
Rolodex. That's what we'd have called it back in the day. Ryan asked your parents what a Rolodex was.
Oh no, I was around when there was a Rolodex.
Okay, like in stores, like secondhand, or just kidding. So Tad, how did you pick drivers? Like, how did you pick Ryan?
How'd you pick this guy?
Yeah.
Well, Ryan is a champion up from where you're from, Chris, up in New England. And of course, was well aware of him winning championships and winning races a lot up in the modifieds. That's really my favorite form of NASCAR racing. Those are great races. So always watched him race. And then he came south and was with a smaller team. I paid notice to him because that smaller team really had very few resources, and he almost got them in the playoffs. And I was like, there's some talent there. But obviously at this level, you're looking for people who have won races at the next level, level below in NASCAR. So I'll let him tell a story about the big bet he made on himself to get a few races at Joe Gibbs Racing, the top level of equipment in the B leagues. And of course, once he got in that, he won races, and the rest is history.
Yeah, really, it's like Tad said. When you grow up in this sport, you progress by winning. That's how you pretty much stay alive in it. And I was with a lower tier team, and I'm used to winning races, so it was really just a thing where I'm like, at the end of 2016, I wasn't getting to where I wanted to be. I didn't feel like me just being there was doing much, so I moved back north. And right at that time, Carl Edwards retired. Well, that opened up a door for 2 races at Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series, which, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have people that supported me, local companies in Connecticut that were willing to put up a lot of money, along with myself having to borrow money to get those 2 opportunities, where we finished second at New Hampshire and we won Iowa. And then that created 2 more opportunities, which then turned into 15 more opportunities the following year. And obviously that led me to where I am today with Jody and Tad. I mean, it really just comes down to believing in yourself, knowing that you have the ability to get the job done, and executing. So I was fortunate enough to have all the resources. And now I've ended up with Jody and Tad, and Tad's a heck of a marketing guy. I mean, there's so much to learn from him when it comes to how to change when the economy changes. It's not just putting a sponsor logo on a car. It's about making it worth these different brands to work together, whatever it may be. So he's definitely the number one guy when it comes to selling sponsorship and at all different types of sporting events.
Yeah, you weren't that late. I mean, you were pouring it on pretty thick, Ryan.
You ask how you pick a driver. How do you listen to that story?
How do you not?
Believes in himself that much and is willing to make that big of a bet to get the opportunity. How do you not hire that? I mean, that's what you want in your organization, no matter what,
Well, except that, and I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. If not, I was thinking a lot. Hey, there's my dad. My dad's also a little bit late this morning. Good to see him. He's West Coast, though. This is 7 a.m. his time, so it's work to get up. We heard that Ryan doesn't even get up till past 10, but
He turns to dust or something usually if the sun hits him before noon.
Yeah,
that's definitely not the case with me. I'm a 6:30 in the morning person, so I'm sorry for being late. I definitely
we're messing with you. We're messing with you.
We're totally kidding. It's completely fine.
But no, one thing I was going to say was that there's a big difference between Tad being really great at selling the sponsorship and you having to maintain an image, which didn't have to be the way, in 70s and all that. When at first I was born in 1970, I grew up with the original cool NASCAR rides and all that sort of stuff. I remember once convincing my parents I'm going to sit and watch a Daytona 500. I did that once ever, because one thing is, if you're not like with other fans, you don't know what to look for. So you're essentially just watching cars go by a lot, and you're just kind of like, well, there it is again, and they tell you who's in the lead, and you kind of hope someone's winning. But to appreciate a race, which you got to learn so much more. You got to learn, to get up on the shoulder at a certain time and all that. But I want to get to Ryan about, you have to represent all those brands. You have to be Mr. Scott toilet paper and all that sort of thing. What's that like for you? Like, what's a good and bad of having to be a brand icon for all those people?
It's easy, to be honest. It's easy for a sense for me, because I feel like I'm usually pretty clean cut and I don't get in trouble. I don't have a reputation for getting in trouble. So it just comes natural, I guess, for myself. We have Gillette razors, and I can't grow much facial hair, so it works out really great. And we have a lot of cool brands that Tad's been able, Tad and Jody and everybody have been able to bring on that are just my everyday brands. So it just mixes very well. I love Velveeta mac and cheese. I love.
Keep going. Give them all.
Yeah, let's go. We got time. We got nothing but time.
So. I don't know. I guess it really just comes natural, because it's the way I live my life anyways.
I remember you saying to me once, Tad, that if they can drive fast, we'll win races. But if they can drive fast and they're personable, we're going to make a lot of money.
Yes, absolutely. You talk about how you pick a driver. Obviously, that story is part of it. But these people are brand spokespeople. They're influencers. And, there's a lot of brands on that car that have to approve on who's getting in the car. So, you take them around, you have the interviews, it's quite a process to change a driver. People have no idea.
Is it ever part of the experience for fans to come check out the car? Because I would very much like to see the car.
Yes, when we get back to fans in the track, I was going to say to get an appreciation for sport, first you guys see it live. It's kind of like hockey. It's fun to watch on TV, but it's a way different experience in person. It's all adrenaline but my favorite thing to do, and Ryan and his wife are a team too. Heather helps us with this every weekend. I love having people come to track with us. We do the pit passes and really show them behind the scenes. You get such an appreciation for what a team sport this is. If you can ever do that with us, Carrie, we'd love to do it.
Absolutely. Ryan, you drive a Camaro, so does Chris.
Yeah, I have a 2010 Camaro SS. It's stock. I have not driven it exactly to your MPH, but like that. And when I first ever got it, a year after I was there, I was at Birmingham, Alabama for an event, and they said, "Well, we're all friends with Fred Barber here, so if you all want to get onto his track, we could probably convince him to loan you out a Camaro to get on that track." And I said, there's 800 reasons why I have to say no to that. A loaned Camaro on a Barber Motorsports track. I mean, all I'm thinking is, I don't have a check to cover that slip over. When I get around that corner all excited because I'm cocky, that's the end of that game,
Yeah.
It brings that question to mind, though. How do you learn how to handle that? And I guess it's just years of experience, but what do you learn to get the difference between fast, courageous, and I can handle a mistake coming around?
How do you not die?
How do you not die?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you building safe race cars is a huge part of not getting, not dying. And that's what JTG has obviously provided. I don't know if you guys saw that hit at Kansas we had last Thursday, but I'll say that's a testament to what those guys build. But it's funny that you speak about, going to a driving school and being able to drive, something. And I actually, one of my many different jobs, I was actually an instructor at one point. I did some road racing, or not road racing, but it was more of like an exotic driving school, and you just go with the people. But there was a couple times we actually had a master kill switch on our side to have to shut people off, and I had to shut them off because I did not trust them, and they got pretty excited. But I think I was fortunate enough. I came from a racing family. Both my mother's father owned modifieds. Or owned a modified back in the day up in the Northeast. My father always wanted to race, and my mother bought my father their first race car, a street stock, which is like your entry-level car when they first got married. So when I was born, we had a racetrack 5 minutes from our house. I think I started when I was 6.5, 7. So it's a natural thing at that point. When you start that young, when you get loose or whatever, it's just your natural instincts take over. So I guess it's always been interesting to me. People that haven't started racing at first, when they go-kart, like if we go to a go-kart track here in Mooresville, North Carolina, and somebody goes and it's their first time when they're 20, and I've been going since I was 7, and you see them get loose, and you think to yourself, well, that's easy, to pick up, but to catch it, but it's not easy for them. So I think I'm just fortunate enough to have been doing this for so long, and it's really just second nature at this point.
Wow.
Tad was telling us how different the experience has been now that fans can't be in the stands, all the time, even socially distanced, depending where you are, you might not have any. So what's that like for you as a driver?
Well, it's, Tad and Jody, they put together really great weekends for all our sponsors that they call top to top weekends. So we aren't able to see all those people that are all a part of this JTG family. So it is different in that sense. It is different when you're walking, to your car. When you're standing by your car, it's really quiet. And us as athletes, we thrive off energy. Like the Daytona 500 this year, I've never experienced anything like that. The pre-race of, just everything. It's just, it really gets you going. So, it's different in that sense, but when you put your your helmet on and you fire up and you go, everything kind of blurs out and you're doing your job. You're doing what comes natural to you. So that, from the moment you're in the car to the moment you get out, it's pretty normal. But once you're getting to the car, you're getting out of the car, it's like, man, where is everybody,
Ryan, we knew you had to roll off at some point early. I think Carrie had mentioned. I don't know if that's still true or not, but if so, you let us know. Just, give us a sign. We'll figure out how to kick you out. We know how
You
to
just
do
disappear. That's what Chris does when he's tired of all this. He
Just run.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's funny. You mentioned you're driving a Camaro. I have a Camaro, and that's what I'm driving right now. And so I've been working on this street car for a little over a year, and I don't have air conditioning in it, so it's a little warm.
Can we see it?
Buddy.
Can you show it to us? You're on the phone. Are you on a phone?
I'll show you this.
Yeah.
How about that? We'll just show you this.
Wait a second. Get a little close to that panel.
Yeah,
for
get
a second.
back.
What's all that?
Yeah. It's got a
Hang
whole
on.
lot of stuff going on, but
Oh, we're gonna look. Are we not supposed to see
He
that?
wants
Is that
to look. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they want
Is it like illegal?
No, nothing about this is illegal. So it's just
Okay. It's not on the road though. That's why it's on the
No,
yard.
right.
Okay.
well, I'm
Okay.
sitting in a parking lot. Yes.
See, perfectly
But,
legal.
yeah, so it's pretty cool.
All
Are
right.
you,
So
Okay.
are you in the parking lot at Jason's?
No,
Okay.
not
I
today.
hope he's going
I
to
actually
work
got to
out.
go do cardio.
today's a cardio day.
Cardio day.
Well, thanks.
Usually he puts me in a sauna at 140 degrees for about 40 minutes. So
Ted,
we're having a good day.
Ted, you put your drivers through the ringer. This is what I've heard about you. It's pretty rough.
It's funny. He texted me the other day. So both Tad and I, we go to the same trainer. Tad's actually the guy who introduced me to him. And so Tad texted me. So it's a really interesting way of going about things. It's not like weight training. It's more about mobility and movement. And I don't really know what to say. It's like there's like natural movement, like for example,
Plyometrics, basically. Yep.
Kinda, yeah. But we had to throw a ball, a 4.5 pound medicine type ball. And Tad out threw me the other day, and he just had to text me and let me know.
We have one question before you leave because Chris's dad wants to know. Lady Driver on Netflix seemed to show the driver owner experience. Was that picture somewhat accurate?
So I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that on Netflix. I might have to go check it out, and I'll have to let you guys know.
Yeah, tell us about your worst day with Tad, and we'll tell you if it matches up.
There's no bad days with Tad. It's all good.
Now, look, besides having to look
the
at
most positive person I've ever met. I will say that.
you guys are angelic. I mean, anybody who keeps leaving a comment about you seems to be excited about that.
Yep.
You have to look at the tape, so to speak. So funny we all still say go look at the tape, but you got to do that for racing. But you can't possibly live, breathe racing all the time. What is Ryan off the track about? What's you when you're sick of wheels for a minute?
You'd be surprised. I live racing. I live cars. I feel like if you're, at least myself, like I was growing up around anything with wheels and a motor. So that's me.
Yep.
There is not much more to it. Everything about me is race cars and racing fuel.
Tell them about your pets, though. You guys are big animal people.
That's my other half. So I was never, we had dogs growing up, but we never really had anything more than that. Well, my wife is an animal lover, and we have horses, we have mini horses, or a mini horse, we have goats, ducks, chickens, we got a pet dog and cat, birds, we got everything. I think we're up to like 24 animals. So
how's that ark looking in the backyard? Did you get that all built yet?
Yeah,
It's got a hell of an engine.
Well, we have a tropical storm coming, so I might need to build one.
I was just thinking any good rainy day, and Ryan's back there making sure both goats are handy still.
Ryan, before you drive off, what's in your backpack? What do you have to have in your backpack to succeed?
Well, that's a good question. So I actually have my laptop, and for us drivers, a tool that JTG
Your metaphorical backpack.
Your metaphorical backpack. Carrie missed one little step in that storyline. The backpack of life, everything's moving so fast and there's no real solid ground anymore. What goes in the backpack of someone's life going forward?
And you're not allowed to say another backpack. Someone tried it and we said no. That breaks the rules.
What's in my backpack?
I mean, when you bet on yourself, what made you do that? Like, what quality, what characteristic?
And what do you tell an upcoming driver who knows that they got to get out there and do the same thing you did?
I think I'm more afraid of failure than I am of succeeding. So I didn't want to fail. I think that's really what drove me. I didn't want to step away from something and look back and say, I know I can do this, but this is the only thing that stopped me from doing it. So I'm just somebody that no matter what it takes, I'm going to try and get it done. So I guess that's really it.
The determination. Yeah. And a fast car and an understanding wife.
That's right.
That's the theme for both these. Did you notice? You're like, oh, we're first. When my dad was first, they were first married, she got him a car. And I'm like, there's a theme here. It's like, you got to get in there early with the racing desires. Like, that's cool, honey, right? Sure.
Yep. So
you mark my words. You guys may make me a prophet, but this is Ryan's sophomore year at the top level of the sport.
Wow.
Just getting started, and there's the champion right there. I mean, he's got, as you can tell, he's got the tools, he's got the experience, but that desire and that it never ceases to amaze me. Like when we get on the airplane, he's immediately back there with his crew talking about what we need to do next, and he's not going to quit till he gets it done. So I'm just along for the ride.
He's got the tools, he's got the talent. See, I worked in a movie line.
That's Top Gun.
All right,
Thanks
Ryan
Preece. Bye, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for swinging by.
Tad, you stay.
Don't you run away.
It'll be just us.
So something that Bill Donaldson said, he's talking about Ryan being a great driver and spokesperson. He says, great to listen on the scanner during the race. Good luck in New Hampshire. So one thing I was thinking, Tad, is, like I said, when I watched NASCAR the first ever time I watched Daytona 500, I realized I didn't know anything. And so I couldn't connect very well to the sport. When you bring in, you convince the folks that, let's pretend they're on the market, Johnsonville Brats, and they need to get their sticker on your car. What do you tell that senior marketing team at Johnsonville Brats to make them excited, in that room? Like, I mean, racing's exciting. What do you tell them to give them that insider feeling?
That's what absolutely fascinates me. And what I love about what I do is you've got to understand the features of what you have and how you can connect the dots to solve a problem for them. And it's different for everybody. When Johnsonville was on my car for a number of years, they had no household penetration in the Southeast. Brats were big up where you grew up. They're big in the Great Lakes area. But no one knew what a brat was in the South, and that's where we were racing. So as we sat with them, I could have talked about advertising and awareness. Really what they had to create was trial. So literally I came up with this idea sitting in the room. It's just the way my mind works. Somehow the Lord blessed me with this kind of mind. I said, what if we put a grill? We have 18 Kingsford show cars on the road every day. What if we put a grill on the back and pulled it out and we sampled brats and coupon brats throughout the Southeast? In front of grocery stores as part of the sponsorship. I could have walked out of there without a deal, but literally they on the spot said, how many shows can we do? What's the cost? We had a deal when I left. And this is an awesome thing. That's the way my mind works. My wife's the detail person. It's a good thing she's in the business, because I got home, was so excited. And she looked at me and she said, how are you going to get perishable meat from place to place?
Whoops.
I said, well, that's your job. So she literally found a way to go to cold storages and pick up the meat in the mornings. And she worked it out. But I came up with the big idea. She came up with the details. That's kind of how it works with us.
How do you calculate? And I don't have this kind of experience with this. And the way I make my numbers when I charge people something is magic to me. How in the minute when you're throwing that together, I guess I'm saying go a few sentences deeper. How do you do that? They say, great, we'll do it. Now what? Do you instantly just have a number in your head somewhere? Do you just say, well, kind of need $600,000. Let's divide this by that. Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, for me, you got to create a value, right? Values cost over performance. So, obviously you have a number you're trying to get to. You see, we have 18 different sponsors that we work with. So really that's more of a function of this is what it's worth based on the need that we can fix. And it's a negotiation from there. So obviously we look at our cost of goods and, You can negotiate how big the stickers are on the car. You can negotiate how many races they have. Generally, we go marketing back to say, okay, if you really want us to sample these many stores, here's what it's going to cost to do that. Now we have to make it legitimate with the race fans. How many races are we going to do? How much money's left? So that's generally the way it works, is like, let's get the marketing and brand solution right first and figure out how the racing part fits into that. And then I just got to keep getting more partners. If the deals are smaller, then there are more stickers on the car. If the deals are larger and are more value, you got fewer. So
fewer, but they're bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you choose the right partners? How do you know that they're going to be someone you'll enjoy working with, like in the long term?
One of my favorite books of all time is Good to Great, and they talk about the hedgehog concept. I grew up selling groceries. I love selling groceries. We know all the retailers and the people that make the decisions at the retailers. So if you look at our cars, we're the Kroger team on the 47 car, the biggest grocer in America, great partners. And we're grocery brands. So that's what I'm good at. That's the industry I understand the best. We've had other partners. We had Alltel Telecommunications for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow we made the sale, but I didn't understand enough about their business to help them the way I can help a Kingsford Charcoal or a Bush's Beans.
All your brands are doing really well right now, actually.
Isn't it great? I would hate to have American Airlines on the hood of my car right now, but the heroic people at Kroger kept the stores open and kept America fed, and they've had a good following from just keeping their stores stocked and working hard. And then everyone needs disinfecting wipes and toilet paper, and there are more people eating at home, so all the food products on our car are just having a really good success right now, which is fun.
That's interesting that you stuck with things a little bit the way, like Warren Buffett said, he invested. He said, I love Coca-Cola. That's why I invested in Coca-Cola. There's probably no business reason to love Coca-Cola. I just like the product. And you said that about grocery store brands. It's interesting to think through. I suppose maybe there's some stories like this, that the kind that nobody wants to talk about, but when you take a gamble and you say, I think I'm going to try something I really don't know, but I hear it's big with the kids or something like that. Do you have stories like that where, you did it just because you thought you might be able to work something and it didn't quite play? How does that work for you? And how do you recover when that kind of thing happens?
Yeah, that comes into play with our toolbox. So brand activation maximizer, we activate the brands out in the stores. And
okay,
man, the world's changing so fast right now. And what we do is, it's just got to continue to evolve. What we did when we had 18 show cars on the road, think about it, that was quite expensive to have people in hotels, hauling that stuff around. Now with social media and our mobile tool, BAM Live, we can literally send a full advertising message with a coupon straight to someone's phone as they walk in the store. And that serves the same purpose really, but so much more efficient. So man, I'm constantly getting outside my comfort zone right now. I had a meeting just last week with a company in collectibles. They're doing digital collectibles.
Right.
So they took what they did with cryptocurrency, this blockchain technology where there's no middleman and there's a clear line of ownership and a ledger. And they created these limited edition digital collectibles. And to make it even better, you can make your collectible more power it up by doing different things. Like, so if I say your Kroger race car card is now twice as valuable because you downloaded the Kroger app, we can do that. And I'm looking at this saying, I don't understand half of what they're saying. There's something here. I got to get comfortable with it. That's where I'll dig in the internet and start studying and decide if it's a viable thing that needs to be in our toolbox. So
is that Jody Rick? Is that who you dealt with there?
We did with Finapoli out of Toronto. Is the people.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just asking because that very same thing you laid out is something I helped on an advisory board for a couple of years ago, and I thought this is going to be the smallest planet in the world, if that's same fellas. By the way, Factor points out while Carrie was doing that searching on that, I'm going to overlay you for just 1 second, Carrie. My house looks like Kroger exploded in my cabinets because of Ryan Preece. Bush's, Cottonelle, Louisiana hot sauce. Wow, so you have Cottonelle and Scott, or is it at different times you have different ones?
Kimberly Clark, they make Cottonelle and Scott. They make Viva. They make Huggies. They make the Pen. So all those brands we kind of have a relationship with by default.
No, I'm a Scott guy because, you know, I like to not have to plunge my toilet a lot, and my children seem to turn their hands into mummies or something when they're in there. So
Catcher's mitt. They're playing ball in the
they're
house.
playing catcher's mitt, no question. You know, 1 ply for life, baby. That's my story of my house. Tad,
I love that they're naming all my sponsors across the bottom of the screen. That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? And Factor drinks. Well, listen, I got to ask Factor a question. Factor, type right in here, okay? So my friends were like this. I was telling you, I play with 2 video game friends. It's the only reason I know anything vaguely NASCAR sounding when I talk about it with you. And they literally get in arguments if they're going against their team that they like. If you're buying something that they don't like, if you said, you know, Hormel beans instead of Bush beans, those are like fighting words to these fellas. You know, not really, but let's be that way. How much does that? I mean, do you feel that the majority of fans, I mean, you want the majority of fans to do that. Do you feel like that's what's driving it? And that's something different than in almost any of the other pro sports?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I said, when you put a billboard up in Green Bay Packers Stadium, the fans may or may not, as rabid and loyal as they are to the Packers, they may or may not equate that brand helping pay the players and bring that sport to you that you love. You know, NASCAR fans are smart enough to realize these teams aren't going to run around the track without sponsors on the hood. So if I'm going to support the sport that I love, if I'm going to support my team, I'm switching brands. And interesting story, when I was selling Tide in the Southeast, I had to be within a dime on the shelf of Surfer Whisk, my biggest competitors, or I lost market share. 2 years after we started sponsoring NASCAR in the Southeast, I was $1 more expensive and building market share.
Wow.
So that's people saying I'm a Tide person now. It doesn't matter. And that's really what we're trying to activate for people.
That is fascinating. Factor, I got one more question for you. Where are you on the planet? I feel like I know the answer, but I'm curious to know. Working with your wife, you know, Carrie has brought Jody into the conversation a bunch more times, and even Ryan, you know, threw her name up as many times as he could.
Heather, yeah.
That's good and tricky. What's that like? And what's a Geschickter argument like versus the pro versus, you know, at home? Like, I don't care if you argue over you didn't put the thing in the hamper the right way, but what's the difference?
I think it comes down to respecting where we both have strengths. They're totally different. You know, I told the story. I'm a big picture visionary. How do I connect the dots person? The details. The only thing that makes Jody really mad is when she gets into details with me. I'll get frustrated. I'll do the blowfish. I do. And she goes, "Do not blowfish me. Do not. You need to listen to this." That's the one action I do. I do it subconsciously when I'm getting frustrated. And she goes, "Do not blowfish me." So but I realized that her strengths lie in those details. For instance, you know, I understand how to put together an organizational structure and a budget, but there's a lot of details that go through with employee handbooks and all that stuff that she manages in HR that I could never do. So we understand that, you know, what our roles are and what our strengths and differences are. And we just try to support each other. Now, we do have to have a safe spot at the house where we don't talk about business. So the rule is we have a screen porch at our house we love to sit on in the evenings with our dogs. And the rule is when you're on the screen porch, we're not going to talk business. So
Nice.
No blowfish face.
No blowfish. Those are the 2 rules. That's right.
That's it.
It's a good one.
Do you see your answers came through, Chris?
Oh, I see them. By the way, East Freetown, you know, I was going to say, I figured as a gentleman, the southern half of the hemisphere. I'm in the northern part of the state up by Newburyport. So it is really the south if you look at East Freetown that way.
That's not the south.
We're going to be his way on Sunday. We're racing in Loudon, New Hampshire. It's a beautiful part of the world.
I think he was he or another fellow was just saying, you know, looking forward to that New Hampshire race. Loudon's a nice little track too. It's pretty around it. A lot to see. Yeah. Ryan had done that Monadnock race, and I had seen that, and I had gone up and down some of the mountains there in my very brief stint as a trail running aficionado. You know, it's like race car driving without the car part. You just go up and down hills. I had another question as it relates the husband and wife dynamic and all that sort of thing. When you look at the way racing was in the day, and as you look at racing now, inclusivity, diversity, all the stuff, especially now, civil rights movement, all the things going on. You mentioned employee handbook. It has changed. That world has changed dramatically, and we have to approach this all in a different way. I'm sure there's been a lot of meetings like that. What's that like for you? And or what is it like to communicate you have your spiritual values, you have your business integrity values, and you have fan support and all that. How do you keep those a braided knot, and how do you keep that all together?
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. I grew up in a really diverse, inclusive environment. So, some of my best friends I played ball with and all, they weren't the same color as me or same nationality as me. And we still went swimming together, and they were just my friends. So I guess it's the way my parents raised me. I didn't understand as much as I moved south from the DC area. Some of the stuff I saw and felt. Interesting, one of our best friends and business partners, Brad Doherty, who's from Black Mountain, North Carolina, NBA star, and he happens to be black. And we asked him one day. He said, he never said anything about it. He's at the racetrack with us every weekend. We're at Darlington. There are Confederate flags everywhere.
Right.
And, how do you feel about that? He said, it makes my skin crawl. But
wow.
He loved the sport. He just understood that. He chose not to mention it, but the fact that made him uncomfortable really was kind of eye-opening to me. So I hadn't given it a lot of thought, but I really think the changes that NASCAR's implemented and all this new talk about diversity and inclusion and getting rid of the Confederate flags at the track, it's a change that was needed. And I think it's just going to help us grow our sport. It was an inhibitor. It wasn't overtly talked about. But I think now someone's put the topic on the table. We're starting to learn that, that's something that needed to change.
How much direction do you get from the top? Like I know in the NFL and in the MLB, it's like it's like a federal system. They set those rules at the top. But in NASCAR, it seems a little more democratic. Like the teams have a little more independence. Is that how it is, or do they kind of crack the whip?
Yeah, we're not really a league. NASCAR owns the sport, and we're independent contractors that choose to operate in it. So they set the rule book as far as the cars go, and some of the things we can and can't do. But very different from other leagues where they're a real collaboration. The commissioner in the NFL works for the owners. The commissioner in NASCAR don't work for the owners. He works for the family, and they're getting better and better at having meetings and talking about our point of view. But at the end of the day, they make the rules, and we got to figure out how to build our business around them.
It's big stuff. It's a lot to imagine that difference. Though I think it's a big difference though, because NASCAR is and always was run like a business. It is an athletic driven endeavor like anything else like that. But it's really interesting just to see what it means when there's league commissioners and all that sort of thing. And I say that with a great deal of negative impression just on how they make these kind of things go through. Like for instance, in pro football in the US, it's not working that same way. It's not working that fast. It seems like it's like a game of inches, kind of like football is. I'm thrilled to see how fast it moves. And I'm also excited to see that, you may or may not lose some fans over it, but you're really getting ready to embrace a whole new group of fans. That's my next question. As an owner, you don't get any good advertising without good fans. So you got to be in fan development all the time. NASCAR does, you have to. What do you do to keep this a sport for young folk as your fan base keeps aging up a little bit more?
Esports is the first initiative that comes to mind. If we have the Heat Pro League.
Yes.
Every team in NASCAR owns an esports team. Right. And we pick our drivers who are great on their computer and racing on the computer. And, we get 200,000-300,000 people on a Wednesday night. The championship race, I think, is August 19th. And knock on wood, our JTG drivers won a lot of races this year. We could win the esports championship. So I love when I see Roger Penske or Joe Gibbs. I make fun of the fact that I'm beating them in esports, but I think that's a way for us to reach out. During the pandemic, Fox put iRacing on. Denny Hamlin had this idea. All the drivers do iRacing, which is really realistic at their homes, kind of learn the tracks. And they said, why don't we put on a race on TV? And, that brought in, I think NASCAR said our first race back in Darlington, we had 1.3 million new viewers, people who had never watched NASCAR before. So that's that younger audience getting engaged and saying, let me check that out. And then hand-to-hand combat's really it. I mean, social media, which you're great at, Chris. How do we keep, reaching out to that demographic? Because, I grew up playing baseball. I understand the rules. I like watching baseball. I understand the nuances of the game. If your dad didn't take you to a track or your mom didn't take you to a track as a youngster, as you said, it takes a little while to understand what the heck's going on. And, you got to keep having those educational and experiential opportunities to bring new fans in. And NASCAR is always working on that.
It seems like a lot more possibility of accessibility. Not that, there's a lot of technical skill that goes into and a lot of physical athleticism that goes into being a driver, but there are all these other skill stacks on top of you to be pro baseball guy or pro football guy or something. When you're driving in these newer kind of, video game rigs where people can buy a real racing seat and a real steering wheel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know, maybe they put duct tape on the wall of their bedroom before they get ready to race so you can get it out of the net that way. But it feels like you at least get the illusion of accessibility in a different way because of things like NASCAR Heat than you do in other sports, I think.
Absolutely. We have one driver in the Cup Series who's very successful. I think he's 23 now, William Byron. Literally, his parents didn't have access like Ryan's did to build him a race car. And he really started out computer racing and learned he had an affinity and then got in a car. And, he's risen up quickly. So there is some correlation. It's not one-to-one between being able to do it on the computer and not. But, just like I learned to play baseball in Little League and wanted to be a pro baseball player when I was a kid, maybe, all this accessibility technology will make this more of a mainstream thing for people as they grow up.
They say envisioning success is a big part of achieving it. So what is that except envisioning and then, living it, simulating it?
Absolutely.
Simulating it is and it's interesting in football, what they did with Madden sports. There's a lot more to, like, you could be a team owner now in that game and you could spend a lot of time sort of plotting people's careers and all that. There's all this stuff that you would never think anyone would want to play in some kind of video game. But I can't imagine someone wanting to be the Tad Geschickter inside of a NASCAR Heat video game, but maybe someday you're going to be a video game character. You don't know.
You don't know. You should know.
I could be a video game character. All right. Funny story about, aspirations. I'm at Kroger headquarters doing business and they bring in different brands to the lobby. They do samples at lunchtime, whatever. Well, Tyson Chicken and Blue Emu, there are a couple brands that use Johnny Bench as a celebrity spokesperson. I was a catcher growing up. Johnny Bench was my man. I'm sitting in this meeting with the Kroger executives and, I'm talking about Johnny Bench and how he's a hero and he's going to be in the lobby today. So those people literally took it upon themselves to leave the meeting and take me down to meet Johnny Bench. I was like, this is
that's amazing.
We're all fans, aren't we, Tad? That's what that says too. We're all fans. Hugh and Factor and some of these people who showed up today, I never seen them before, but they came because they saw that their guys were going to be covered and they thought we got to show up and be part of this team. So it's interesting in this sport, I think, more than some sports. They really do understand fan service, like those people at Kroger did when they brought you down to say hi to Johnny Bench.
The most important thing to me, Hugh Gray is a friend of the family now. He's a JTG super fan.
Oh, hey, Hugh.
He comes by when he lives in Atlanta. When he comes by the shop, we keep in touch with him on social media and texting with Jody. And that's the fun thing is, there are people that when we run well, the texts I get from people I've met through the years and become friends with, it's just a special sport. And it's neat to create those one-on-one interactions with people.
You do a lot to give back to the community too, Tad. Tell me about Full Carts, Full Hearts.
Something? We look at how we activate NASCAR, and NASCAR may not be for every retailer, for every brand. And we said, how do we take our skills and do some good with it? So we do other sports, but it's really been fun to do other charities. So for Kimberly Clark on Earth Day, we'll put together retail promotions around tree planting in communities. For sustainability, that's been really fun and well accepted. And certainly in this time when the food pantries are running low, it's amazing when you put in front of people and realize that how many kids That's subsidized lunches, their only meal of the day. What do they do on the
Right.
weekend? What do they do on the holidays? Now they're educating by Zoom and not going to school. That's a real problem in America. So banding brands together and retailers together to raise money to end childhood hunger, add to the backpack program that Feeding America has is a promotion we have. And it's really feels good when you look at the end of the year and say, look how much money, look how much of a difference we made on behalf of these brands and retailers. So yeah, just kind of taking our skills and maybe putting a little different slant on that does some good.
Beautiful thing. The as you were saying that, one of the things I was thinking about is that, and I touched on this just for a tiny minute, but you were saying that, you know, all these different things integrate really well. It's interesting that you get to bring all of the aspects of your life, your passion for team sports, your faith, your belief in, you know, connecting with people, a long experience of racing and all that. Relationship building and all that. How do you, you're going to want to give up at some point. You know, you're going to want to get a lot more beach time at some point. I can't see it. You seem pretty vital still, but you're going to want to. How do you build the legacy system? And when are you thinking about it yet? Or is that still so far off in your brain?
It's amazing. That's really come into the forefront of our mind over the last 2 years. So, you know, who's the next person we bring in to work in the marketing department that we feel has the skill set, if we continue to mentor them, that they could live, you know, make it live on. We've been doing this since the year after we got married, so we didn't have kids. It wouldn't have been fair. We got nieces and nephews and animal children. So yeah, really, that's come to the forefront with us. How do we develop that next generation of skill set? So we brought in a consultant like yourself, Chris. He specializes in personality profiling and pulling out who probably could have the affinity to or the ability to do kind of what I do. And we're putting everyone we interview through that. Never have done it before, but you know, looking at, you know, behind the scenes, those personality traits or those listening abilities that might help them connect the dots so this can live on. So
Need a TED 2.0.
Yeah, it's amazing. You spend your whole life thinking, how do I build the business? And you get in your late 50s, and you're like, whew, it's just, how am I going to get off? I'm not sure I got a plan. So,
well, one of the things I'd read in an article of yours about you was that, you know, it's hard to remember to stop and smell the roses a bit too, because you're always rolling and you're rolling fast. And, you know, as this coronavirus thing hits, you think, oh gosh, there went a lot of eyeballs in the seats. I've got to adapt. But you said you've been adapting. You got your social platform stuff going now. You've got a lot of people making video. What are the future JTG kind of technologies that are going to bring you even closer to fans and buyers? And I guess, you know what I'm asking in a weird way, I just realized is if you pie chart a little bit about where your forward thoughts are going, what does that look like on a wall?
I think the nature of retailing, which is the business we service, is going to look different at the end of this. You know, you used to always walk in the store, and for me, if I could get on the front page of the newspaper ad with my product, if I could get that display outside the aisle where people tripped over my product and saw it was on sale, that's what drove sales. Well, now people aren't necessarily going to walk in the store. They're going to look at it on their phone. They're going to shop online. They're going to pick it up at the curb. So, you know, this BAM Live tool we built was our first step at saying, okay, the front page ad no one reads the newspaper anymore. They may not see the display because they're not walking in the store. How do we market the fact that, you know, it's time to buy more Kingsford charcoal or more Louisiana hot sauce? And it's fun. I don't know about you, but man, my nose is buried in it all the time. It seems to be the technology that's always on. So that's been our focus here over the last 2 years. And then to your point, Chris, man, I'm reading. I love talking to industry leaders at Kroger about how they're thinking about the future, because it gives you those insights to understand, what do I need to be 2 years from now? You don't just flip a switch and change. You got to continue to build your abilities and toolboxes, the people you have in your organization, and their skill set, so you can be ready for that change. And I think that's really the challenge for all business people. But I find the challenge enjoying and invigorating. You want to make all the right calls. You don't always do that. One tool we did for NASCAR was we built the virtual fan zone. So if you ever come to a racetrack, people love coming early because of the traffic, or they're camping out all weekend. And there's a midway with sponsor displays and sampling and souvenir trailers, and that's really part of the event. And now we don't have fans in the stands. We built that online. So for 4 hours before the race, you can go to racingfanzone.com. And we have technology like this where the drivers or the spotters or the truck drivers or the owners get on. And instead of some celebrity interviewing them, the fans get to ask the questions. And that's really been well received. People have enjoyed the heck out of that. So, and you can buy your souvenirs from the team stores and get samples and coupons from the sponsors. It's pretty fun, but just always trying to figure out a way you create value for your sponsors and your fans, no matter what's going on. It's kind of fun work to do.
Well, I guess Andy says he likes it a little bit. I'm pushing the button, Carrie.
You hired me to do it. You have to let me do it.
As a Preece fan and a JTG fan, and as a current business administration student, this is some great information. So listen, right? This is specifically for Andy, but for everybody else, we asked Ryan this question. What do you got to put in the backpack to be successful? You know, you've only got limited space. So someone's going to have to carry something that Tad Geschickter said goes into that backpack, not beans, by the way. What's going to go in there to make them develop to have the chance to succeed the way you've been succeeding so long?
For me, it's empathy. You know, how do you put yourself in someone else's shoes, where that's someone you're selling to, where it's a fan and how they're engaging with you. As you can tell, I let Brad do the public speaking. He's a great public speaker as our co-owner, but I'm not the most articulate or fun to listen to person. I listen way more than I talk in a sales call. I really want to understand where it hurts, what's keeping you up at night, and how I might be able to use our tools and our sport to help you fix that. And, to me, I think that's kind of the one thing in my backpack, is always trying to put myself in the other person's shoes and understand what they're trying to solve for. I think that's something that could help everybody.
I'll take it. I'll accept that as a very good answer for the backpack. Hugh mentions that he loves Racing Fan Zone. Dylan is awesome. I think you're right about Hugh being a super fan. I'm really interested to know, how that kind of walks around. It's interesting what we get to be fans of. And I think there's no one that's not a fan of something. There's always something that we're hoping where we can connect and get that sort of insider feeling. So
sometimes it's the only thing you can connect with somebody on, because I've had conversations with people. We have nothing else in common except they were human and we like Harry Potter. I think that's it.
That's right. That's right.
That's powerful thing in the world.
Thank you so much for swinging by the backpack. Thanks for being part of this and just chitty chatting with us. It was a lot of fun.
It's really nice to see you all. Chris, I hope we can work together. I got some questions for you, so we'll follow up.
I'll follow up. I can't wait to get on a call with you. That sounds perfect. All right. So you have